Wonderful. All right, it looks like we are live. Hello, everybody. This is Diana Gomez, Advocacy Manager at Progress Texas. And for today's Progress Texas Candidate Happy Hour, the very last Candidate Happy Hour in our season, right before election, we are joined today with Representative Veronica Escobar. Out in El Paso, and then also by Chrysta Casteñeda. Hello, how is everybody doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
Yeah, doing absolutely fabulous. Excited about November 3rd.
Yes, it's so soon. And just to start out on a positive note, how are y'all doing right now? What's keeping you grounded during this exciting time?
Chrysta, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, right at the moment, I happen to be on South Padre with my husband for our 25th anniversary celebration. So I'm taking a little time to do Zoom campaign events, but otherwise I'm enjoying a beautiful beach. And man, Texas is gorgeous, especially when it's not 112 degrees.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. So Diana, we have been doing some really incredible work that I'm excited to share with you. I've teamed up with my colleague, friend, partner in democracy, State Representative Cesar Blanco, as well as our local Democratic Party for a very aggressive GOTV strategy. Our local party is targeting our 100% voters. Rep. Blanco and I are targeting low propensity voters who haven't voted in years, as well as new voters, in order to get them out. We've made about 150,000 calls so far. We've sent about 50,000 texts. We're still going strong, and our work is actually bearing fruit. And almost 30% of people who have broken records in El Paso are the folks we've targeted.
That is amazing. And it looks like we're seeing records breaking across the state, which is just making this so exciting. And it's really exciting to hear, especially coming from your area. That's so amazing. As you're all working right now and campaigning, what else are y'all seeing is happening in Texas communities right now? And how are you connecting folks with resources? What are some of the core issues you hear that people are talking most about right now?
Well, in my race, of course, it being focused on the oil and gas industry, we've had an epic downturn in oil and gas jobs, and companies are failing, and workers are out of work, and people are hurting. And so we talk about that a lot. We can both have our historic environmental protections against flaring and venting of natural gas, and protections against greenhouse gas emissions, and have a stable economy here in Texas and our oil and gas jobs. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. That's the message I'm putting out. I'm proud to be on broadcast TV all across the state. And we are also doing a very robust radio program in the Valley and in El Paso and in other places. So I'm so pleased to have enough money to actually get the message out about how we need to do better for Texas here at the Railroad Commission.
And wonderful.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, that sounds so wonderful. How about you, Veronica?
We have, as we are connecting with voters, it's interesting, like we've gotten a lot of questions. So there's a lot of folks who were not aware that there was an extra week of early voting. A lot of folks with questions about how do I vote safely, questions about mail-in ballots. And as you know, like we live in a state that has been trying to suppress turnout and the vote for a long time, including during a global pandemic. So the calls have been super productive. Not only are we convincing people to come out and vote and to vote for Democrats, but we're also providing really useful information to voters, especially those low propensity voters who haven't voted in many years, about what they need to do, where their closest early voting location is, et cetera. Thankfully, in El Paso, we have a great elections department that has made voting even in this era of voter suppression, they've done everything possible to make voting as easy and safe as possible.
That's so wonderful that they're putting in all of that effort to make sure that as many Texans have that information that they need. That you mentioned, yeah, that the Republicans here in Texas are trying to suppress. And just to remind our viewers, we'll be chatting with our guests today. But if y'all have any questions, feel free to drop them into the comments section to see if we have time to ask any of those. And I first wanted to turn right now to Chrysta. We last spoke to you in May, where we learned more about the position that you're running for the Railroad Commission, learning that it has little to do with railroads and a lot more to do with regulating gas and oil in Texas. How has your campaign transformed since we last spoke in May? And then we also heard you just got a kind of an endorsement from your opponent's ex-campaign manager.
Yeah, isn't that the wildest thing? Well, let me start with that. So my opponent, Jim Wright, his first campaign manager was apparently so thoroughly disgusted with the Republican Party and with Jim Wright that he switched parties. So he is now voting Democrat up and down the ballot and endorsed me on Twitter implicitly the other day in response to a tweet from Chrysta Casteñeda, one of the other railroad commissioners. So, hey, it's a thing. I tell you what, I have had Republicans come out of the woodwork to tell me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, that they are voting for me because I'm the only one who has a policy that's actually going to help us get out of the ditch at the Texas Railroad Commission. So since we talked last, I think that was prior to the longest runoff in the history of Texas politics. We won the runoff decisively, and then things have really just taken off. Like I said, we've been able to garner support from, I think now almost 4,000 individual donors and enough money for the first time in Texas Democratic history to broadcast what the Railroad Commission race is all about to all of Texas. So very, very happy about that. And thanks again to Progress Texas for your help in getting the word out. You guys are fabulous.
Yeah, definitely. We're so glad you won that runoff and excited to talk to you again. And excited to talk to both of y'all again after November, after you win. That'll be such a great thing. I always get excited to see such strong, amazing women in leadership in Texas, as opposed to some of the failed leadership that we have right now with Republicans. And talking about that, I wanted to ask the both of y'all, if maybe we could start with you, Veronica. We're seeing Governor Abbott and Texas Republicans attack localities, mislead Texans, and ignore common sense measures that would protect our families. What do y'all think needs to be done at the state level or federal level? And what should Texas be doing to ensure the health and safety for Texans?
Well, what we need to do is pretty simple. We need a new governor. We need a new lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
A new attorney general. We have had, unfortunately, leadership at the state level that puts people's lives last and that puts special interests first, and that is focused solely on retaining power, not ensuring that the people's voices are heard. That's why you've seen time after time Republicans in the state of Texas do everything in their power to keep people away from the ballot box. You shouldn't be afraid of democracy. You should embrace it. And you should embrace people's voices and make sure that those voices can be heard. But what we have, unfortunately, are folks who understand the changing dynamic in Texas, understand that people have values that are significantly different from Greg Abbott's and his enablers. And so we've got to win elections. We've got to make sure that we win elections this year and in 2 years when it comes time to replacing Greg Abbott and all of his associates in state government. But what we can do as individuals is ensure that we hold, one more thing, actually. I think it's really important to realize that we've got to make sure that we vote for Democrats all the way down the ballot, because we want to make sure that we have local governments and local elected officials responsive to us. When you look at the elections offices across the state, they're run by county government. And as I mentioned, the El Paso County Elections Office, amazing work in getting information out, being transparent, being proactive, putting people's safety and their ability to vote, regardless of party, obviously, just protecting people. That's been their priority. And that's because we have local county elected officials responsive to that. They make up the elections board that hires the elections administrator. That's why every race up and down the ballot counts. So make sure that you get out and vote so that in future elections, we have people responsive to our needs, but also get informed and make a plan. As individuals, it's important that you know what you can do to keep yourself safe when you go to the polls. Don't let fear keep you home and rob you of your right and your privilege and your obligation to participate in your democracy, because you can do it safely and securely. In El Paso, for example, and I know in other counties across the state, there's curbside voting, which is the coolest thing. Like literally, it's like you're going through a drive-through. You pull up, and if you've gone through a drive-through at any fast food restaurant, it's like voting in the easiest way possible. They literally bring the ballot box to your window. Be sure to wear your mask. But the reason I say you need a plan is this year the ballot is really long. Republicans have made sure that you no longer have the ability to vote straight party if you choose to. They're all about taking away choices and options for the voter. And so, please look at your sample ballot, which you can always find online. Go to iwillvote.com to make your plan, to find out everything that you need to know in advance of going to the polls. Plan accordingly. Make sure that you give yourself enough time. Make sure you take your ID, everything that you need so that you can help determine our country's future and vote Democrat.
Oh, wonderful. How about you, Chrysta?
Yeah, sorry, you cut out there just a minute. I couldn't hear everything that was going on, but yes, I completely agree with Veronica's message. You've got to get out there and vote. You've got to vote blue all the way down. Really, this is a change election. We have seen tremendous energy coming through, in the early polling numbers. We just need every last Democrat to get out there and vote, and make sure you leave no Democrat behind when you do it. It's not that hard to sit there and check blue all the way down. You just need to focus and get it done. Please, please, please. People are working so hard around the state for this election and this election cycle. Help everybody out by casting your vote, getting it locked in now.
Definitely. That's such a great message to keep echoing. Veronica, Texas Republicans in leadership, as you'd mentioned before, seem to be pulling out all of the stops in terms of voter suppression and attempts at voter suppression across the state. Also, as you said, which has been a thing they've done historically. Why do you think they are so afraid of the ballot box? And what is it showing us that Texans are turning out in record numbers?
They are afraid of the future that has already arrived. When you look at, I think this morning, the latest number for young people, and in fact, I was trying to pull it up because I want to share it with you. It's so incredible. The increase in 18 to 29-year-olds in Texas, 55%. We are seeing record turnout of the very generation that has unfortunately lagged behind in turnout in the past. And they are turning out in record numbers at the ballot box, at the polls. What this tells us is that they are concerned about the climate crisis. They are concerned about an economy that hasn't worked for them. They are concerned about cruel and inhumane public policy. They are concerned about justice and equality. These are values that the Republican Party is not concerned about, and in fact, does everything it can to run away from. And so that is who we are as people, as Democrats. These are our values, and they're afraid of those values at the ballot box. That's why they're trying to keep us out.
Definitely. I'm turning to the questions right now. We have a ton of comments actually happening right now on this video. Veronica, I have Danny Diaz asking if there are any updates on the Tornillo camp out in was it in the El Paso area?
Yeah, it's just outside my district, but it's El Paso County. And the Tornillo camp, unfortunately, has been the site of the holding of unaccompanied minors. And here's just for some context of what happened in the past. Under the Obama administration, the Tornillo facility was erected in order to house the increase of unaccompanied minors arriving at our border. But the good news about that was they were very quickly released to sponsors, very quickly released to family members. The vast majority of people who are arriving at our front door in America already have family here, and they're seeking to reunite with their family. The Trump administration took a very different approach, erected that facility over a long term, and wanted to and did hold unaccompanied minors for long periods of time. Additionally, they created a whole new group of unaccompanied minors as they separate families. And so these, some of these children were not unaccompanied when they came into our front door, came in through our front door. So, we protested last Father's Day, not of 2020, but Father's Day of 2019. We began protesting. The vendor who was providing services there pulled out, and we thought that it would be a permanent shutdown. The federal government has basically created even more facilities. There's a new facility that was actually constructed. When we look at the policies of this administration, we should have addressed the root causes of people running for their lives and running into the arms of the United States long ago. But what this administration has done is essentially use every tool in the federal toolbox for cruelty. And the president has done this, and he and his administration have acknowledged they've done it as a deterrent. This is why elections matter. I want to add one last thing. By holding people, especially children, for long periods of time, not only is it incredibly cruel and harmful to their psyche and their development, but it's incredibly costly. So for those who may not be moved by compassion, you should at least be moved by the way that your taxpayer dollars are being misappropriated.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that update, Veronica. And Chrysta, it looks like we have a question for you in our comment section from Paula Lynn Kaufman. She's asking, Chrysta, could you please talk about unemployment in the oil patch? What are some ways that the TRCC can provide work for some of these highly skilled workers in ways that could help Texans?
Great question. Thank you for it. Let me point out something that the Railroad Commission failed to do that would have helped workers. The fundamental underpinning of the Railroad Commission is that it's supposed to guard against the waste of our natural resources. And one of the things that results in is the ability to make sure that we're not producing oil or gas into an oversupplied market, and to stabilize the price of oil and gas when it gets so dramatically out of whack as it did in the spring. And the railroad commissioners refused to do it, even though the industry had asked them to enact a proration, which means to reduce the production until the price is stabilized a bit. And so what ended up happening, because they refused to do it, is the price of oil went to negative $41 a barrel, meaning you had to pay somebody to take it off your hands. And that cratered hundreds of companies. And it's going to result, when this is all over, in the loss of hundreds of thousands of jobs. This is something that, while the Railroad Commission couldn't have fixed entirely, it certainly could have helped. And yet they are completely unresponsive to the needs of people who work in this industry. And so the Railroad Commission has got to be back on track, and that's what I'm running to do. Now, let me say, in the interim, while we're in this terrible downturn, one of the things we could do is get some stimulus money from the federal government to put displaced workers to work plugging abandoned wells. We have tens of thousands of wells, if not hundreds of thousands of wells, that need to be plugged. We don't have enough money at the state of Texas to do it, which is another issue that we've got to be working on. But we could get those workers back to work doing something that would be enormously helpful while they're sitting on the sidelines waiting for the industry to rebound. So that's one good idea.
Thank you so much. And like we had mentioned before, we are deep into voting season. Early voting is underway, and we are about 11 days-ish away from election week, from November 3rd. How can folks watching right now get involved in both of your campaigns?
Chrysta,
I'll let Veronica go. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So obviously, sign up to volunteer. We are phone banking. There are lots of people who are texting on our behalves. In fact, if you volunteered with Powered by People, they have been trying to get out the word for Chrysta for Texas, and that is awesome. Yeah, but you know what? You don't have to even do anything through the organization. What you can do is you can pay attention and tell 5 of your friends about the campaign for the environment. This is the most important race for the environment and for climate in the entire nation. It's been reported as such in publications all across the globe. You can tell your friends how important this election is, and you can let them know Chrysta Casteñeda is running to get the Railroad Commission back on track. And you can ask them to do the same. Promote by retweeting my stuff, sharing on social, making phone calls to your friends. There's just so much that we can do to get out the word, and each and every one of you can help me do that.
Wonderful. How can folks get involved in your campaign?
Thanks for asking. We need all hands on deck. So we have a constant stream of opportunities for volunteers. You can go to veronicaescobar.com, VERONICA.com. You'll get an email address, our phone number. You don't have to be in El Paso if you want to help us build turnout. You know, El Paso has been ground zero for much of the Trump administration's really horrific policies against immigrants. We've been the site of a hideous wall. We were also, on August 3rd, 2019, the site of the deadliest attack against Latinos in modern American history, fueled by the racism and hate in the White House. We need your help. We want to turn out Latino voters. That's all we've been working on for months. And if you want to help, we will sign you up for a shift. We will give you information on how you can help. If you're in El Paso, there are even other opportunities to help us with our strategy to get those low propensity voters to the polls, to talk to new voters. There are safe and contactless ways to do it so that on November 4th, you wake up knowing you did everything absolutely possible to help win Texas.
Thank you so much. One more question from a comment of Sean Harper is when he was watching the debate last night and wanted to know what y'all thought about the president lying about his tax returns and still being a little weary of showing them to to America?
I will tell you, I was really disappointed in the debate last night, and I ended up turning it off after the president said, his response to kids being separated, the 545 whose parents couldn't be found, when he responded, "Good." I couldn't stomach any more of that, so I started washing dishes. I turned it off, and I thought, I'm going to be productive with my time. I'd had a long day of great calls, of great work to actually do what's needed for our democracy and to pitch in to win this state. But I was also, to be honest, really disappointed with the moderator. I love Kristen Welker. She's an amazing journalist. But when you have someone like Donald Trump who does nothing but lie, and if you don't fact check or at least push on issues, then he's given free reign and free license to just say whatever he wants. So when you heard him say, for example, when she asked about the 545 kids, he said, we have a plan to reunite them. Had I been sitting in that seat, I would have said, what's the plan and what's the timeline? How are you going to reunite these kids? But instead, all he has to do is say, I have a plan, and that's it. And we know that's a lie. And that was question after question after question. I just couldn't take it.
Yeah, when he responded good, part of me felt like I was hallucinating. Like, did he just say that in front of the nation? Did I hear that correctly? But then again, I feel like a lot of this is another reason why the turnout is so high, especially in Texas, because we're tired of feeling like we're hallucinating every time we look on the news and hear the latest thing that he said. How about you, Chrysta?
Yeah, well, I watched the debate. I also have trouble watching the president lie to millions and millions of people. And so, but I stuck with it. And I want to answer a question that Paula Lynn Kothman put in the comments here about the debate last night. Yes, Joe Biden did talk about oil and gas development. And I want to make clear where I think we are in Texas and what my position is. I do not support a frack ban. One of the reasons I don't support a frack ban is because it would result in the greatest environmental cleanup liability the world has ever seen if all of the infrastructure were to be abandoned. We have so much infrastructure here in Texas. We aren't taking care of it because no one has forced us to take care of it. And it is more likely to leak than things that are actually being operated. So we've got a huge environmental cleanup coming, and we've got to make sure that we thoughtfully figure out how to get from point A to point B. Look, if we are simply doing what the Railroad Commission has been required to do for over 100 years, namely protect against the waste of our natural resources, we can have such a dramatic impact on the environment and the health and safety of workers who work around oil and gas operations. We know that Latinas who live within proximity to flared gas are 50% more likely to give birth to premature infants, and that's an unacceptable health risk. We know that people who have asthma and other lung complications and heart disease, that is exacerbated by flaring. We know that methane, which is the primary component of natural gas that is vented to the environment, is 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. All of these things are illegal. Our fellow Texans knew 100 years ago that we shouldn't simply waste natural gas by venting it or flaring it. And if we would simply enforce the regulations and the laws that are already on the books, we can do so much better at the Texas Railroad Commission and so much better for the health of workers and Texans everywhere.
Definitely. And we can start by doing so much better to make sure that you are in that position, which we are all excited to have you there, and a lot of folks that have commenting. Some have already said they're going to vote for y'all today if they haven't already. And so just to end our amazing conversation that I've really been enjoying, and so have our viewers, what is something that both of you are looking forward to, and do y'all have any final words for our viewers?
I think on November 4th, I'll look forward to sleep. Honestly, we have to work like our lives depend on it. I want everybody to wake up November 4th just totally exhausted and blissed out, looking back saying, I did absolutely everything possible and the work paid off. We know that when we put in the work, we win. And I feel like the first time really Texas has the ability to lead the nation, to help us turn this corner. We can turn Texas blue. It is within our reach. It is within our power. Let's as soon as I'm done here, I'm getting back to those calls. So you all join me if you want.
So here's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to election night, when all of the national pundits are wringing their hands over when will we know the result. I am looking forward to Texas announcing at 10 o'clock that they have voted for Joe Biden, and it's all over, and we go to bed happy, and maybe 4 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday morning after we have celebrated the end of this period, and the dawn of a new horizon for all of the United States.
Yes, we're all looking forward to Texas flipping, turning blue, which I feel like in my heart, it's already blue. We just need for folks to keep turning out in these record numbers. Like you mentioned, Representative Escobar, the young folks, the rate of them voting in Texas is the highest, and that's so exciting. And I feel like it clues us into just a little bit of how they might be voting. Again, tired of feeling like they're hallucinating when they see not only our federal leadership talk, but also state leadership talk that has been
local. Don't forget,
yes.
Local as well.
Yes, local too, straight down the ballot from top to bottom. All of these races matter. All of these races affect our day-to-day lives. Chrysta, Veronica, thank y'all so much for this talk. We really appreciated having y'all. And like I mentioned to our viewers at the beginning of this, happy hour, this is our very last happy hour talking to candidates. And starting on Monday, we're going to have a different form of happy hour every day of the week, where we talk, the staff talks a little bit about what's going on in politics. It'll be the countdown to election day. And so it's going to start. These are the final days, but early voting isn't over. Like our amazing guest said, there's still time, if you have already voted, to check in on your friends and to make sure that they voted as well, all the way down the ballot. Again, Chrysta, Veronica, thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. And I won't keep y'all away from the calls anymore.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.